Hello and welcome to the first episode of AME.answers. I'm Dr. Cole Weatherby, a senior HIMSS aviation medical examiner and aviation psychiatrist located in Austin, Texas. On this channel, I'll be answering any and all of your questions about the FAA aviation medical certification process. For the first few episodes, I'm getting us started with some common questions that I get asked as an AME, or some questions that I wish people would ask. And that's more the case with this first question. So here goes with the first question. Dr. Weatherby, how do I get started with getting my FAA medical certificate? Well, step one is going to be finding an AME. The best way to do this is reach out to your aviation brotherhood and sisterhood and see what kind of feedback you can get. So get recommendations from your flight school, from online, from other pilots that you know. Anybody that has seen an AME and dealt with them over the years can give you some pretty good feedback about someone. So that's a good place to get started. If you're getting a first class exam, be sure to book an appointment with a senior AME. They're the only ones that can issue those. So you don't want to go see someone who's not a senior AME and you won't be able to get your certificate. The other thing is, if you have any kind of significant mental health history, I strongly encourage you to see a HIMSS AME. HIMSS AMEs are kind of a subset of AMEs that have experience with mental health issues. They commonly deal with the FAA's substance abuse monitoring program and also pilots that have depression issues and take medication. And so they're usually going to be able to give you some better guidance in terms of how the medical certification might be affected by the mental health history. The next step is you want to decide if you want to have an exam or if you want to do a consultation first. Basic advice there is if you have any health history at all in your whole entire lifetime, it's not a bad idea to do a consultation. And that could be something as simple as calling the AME and talking to them and saying, look, I had this issue when I was 6 years old. I haven't had any problems with it since then. Is there anything I need to be worried about? Or it could be scheduling a formal sit-down consultation with the AME to discuss all of your medical history. Either one of those things can be super helpful. If you have no medical history at all, then by all means proceed with the exam, and you can be pretty confident that it will go well, provided that you know that you're going to meet all the other standards in terms of vision and hearing and things like that. Speaking of vision, it's not a bad idea if you have any doubts at all that you're going to meet the FAA vision standards, is to go see an optometrist and have a good eye test done before your medical. Could be that your glasses or contacts need to be updated a little bit, or it could be that you're going to have some kind of problems meeting the standards. So be sure to familiarize yourself with what those standards are for a first, second, and third class medical, because they vary. After you've got all that done, the next step is one of the most important ones, which is to complete your application for medical certification. There's a federal website called MedXpress. It's medxpress.faa.gov. And you're going to have to complete one of those applications every time you do an FAA medical. So if you want to start out on bad terms with your AME, show up without a MedXpress application. When somebody does that, there's really nothing that we can do. We have to be able to open up their file in MedXpress to do the exam. So I'm sure I'll do future videos about MedXpress and the application and how to complete all the different parts of that. But let me go over a couple really important things. Number one would be your name. So when you set up your account on MedXpress, you will need to put your full name in there, and it needs to exactly match your government-issued photo ID. If it doesn't, you're going to have issues down the road in terms of actually getting your pilot certification. When your pilot examiner sits down with you for your exam, they're going to want that to exactly match. And I've definitely seen examiners postpone or even fail people for having documents that don't match up. So very important, get it right from the very beginning. Put your names exactly as they are on your driver's license or your passport. Some people have names that are 8 names long, and obviously there's only 3 fields on the FAA form. So if there's any confusion about what to put where or how to handle that, reach out to your AME. They should be able to help, or potentially call the FAA and ask exactly how do you want me to document this name. Another issue would be choosing the class of medical certification you're applying for. Really, if you're young and you're planning to pursue a flying career, get a first class medical from the beginning. Most flight schools are going to require that, and it's good to know that you can pass the first class exam. Also, if you have any sort of medical issue and you ended up being put on a special issuance, it's always good to be put on a special issuance for a first class, because that also applies to second and third classes. If you get a third class special issuance, you're going to have to get an upgrade if you ever want to go up in medical class, and that can be a little tedious, so better to just get the first class from the beginning. If you're only flying for fun and transportation, a third class is totally fine. Another important point is to answer questions honestly. Question 18, the question about medications, and the question about recent doctor visits are very important to take seriously, read carefully, and answer completely honestly. You're going to get advice from people that is the opposite of that. You know, people will tell you, oh, if you check yes on that, you're never going to get your medical certification. And that's just not true in the vast majority of cases. Denials are incredibly uncommon. What's more common is the FAA wants to review your case. There's many circumstances where they don't trust us AMEs to issue the medical. And so, you know, there are some additional steps to go through and some time consuming things that you have to go through to get your medical after you report things. But the consequences of not reporting things can be significant. It's rare in my experience that the FAA will prosecute you or take your medical away or take your certificates away if you withhold reporting something on your medical. But what's more common is they're going to scrutinize everything. Once they realize that you have a medical issue that you haven't reported, they're going to take everything that you send them with a high level of skepticism and really want to dig deep to get adequate records and complete records and make you jump through probably more hoops than you normally would had you reported it in the first place. So do the consultation, have an understanding of what's going to happen, go through the deferral process if you need to, working with your AME. When it has you list out your medications, keep in mind those are the medications that you're currently taking. If you've been on a medicine in the past, you do not list that on the list of medications on the application. The last thing I'll mention is about your doctor visits. So it's going to ask you doctor visits from the previous 3 years. And I've seen people just really go crazy over this and spend minutes and minutes, hours, wasting lots of time putting every single doctor visit they've had in the past 3 years. That's not really what the FAA is looking for. You can do one entry for every doctor that you have seen and note what type of doctor it is and what the medical issue that you saw them for. As far as dates go, you can totally just put one date down and then make a note that there were multiple visits, or tell your AME that when you go in for the exam. When you're done with the application, be sure to print out 2 copies, one for your own records and one to give the AME when you go in. The last step is to go in for your exam. So on the day of your exam, be sure that you show up on time and well hydrated. You will have to give a urine sample, and that's really the only lab work that the AME is going to do, so it's important. So be sure that you're able to do that when you show up. The last comment that I'll make is regarding behavior on the day of your exam. Please be on time, please be well prepared, and please act professionally in the situation that you're in. It's not uncommon to get information from the AME that you don't really like. The first time I went in for a medical, I was deferred because of a health issue, and I didn't expect it to happen, and I was upset, but I think I had some dialogue with the AME that was respectful and helpful, and I left, and then I formulated a plan to go from there. It's not the place to express your grievances about the federal government or get into a fight about whether or not that medical issue is really a problem when it comes to flying. AMEs, if they want to stay AMEs, have to follow the rules laid out by the FAA, and there are circumstances where we have to defer the decision about your medical to them. And that's just how it is. That's the position we're in as AMEs. So please try to be understanding of that, and please be respectful with your AME. So that's it for the first episode of AME Answers. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing what kind of questions you all will come up with and doing my best to get them answered for you.